Okay, my name is Dana Abercrombie, the Koalition. Thank you so much for speaking to me. This was, whew, it was heavy, it was emotional, it was amazing, it was what was needed. I wanted to know that you decided to lead with kind of the spiritual terrorism. We have the racial terrorism, we have the things that we've seen before, but can you talk about the decision to also lead with the racial terrorism?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of art in general that puts, especially films that lead with the emotional and the psychological lives of characters. And we just made it our business to start there because I find that humans are complex and flawed and nuanced and interesting, and infinitely more interesting sometimes than just a scare, right? Because those can sometimes be empty unless they're rooted to something very real. So we just made it our business to, and I like that you said spiritual terrorism because it is that, it is a form of that. And we really made the point to set it there first. Yeah.
Right. And what I also loved about this is that you show two sides. You show the people who are affected by racism and you show the people who are being racist. And what I love with Alison Pill's character is that, it's also racism and just unkindness overall. Can you talk about the importance of making her a three-dimensional character?
Yeah. Well, I like that you picked up on that sort of overall nature of her because she's kind of a scorched earth human being, right? It doesn't
Or
matter.
does everyone?
It could have been anybody. Anybody could have moved into that house and she would have had their eyes on that house. You see how she treats her best friend Midge, right? Everyone's sort of an enemy, everyone's a chess piece, but
Mhm.
it just so happens that it's this family, right? So like
Right.
that's like the worst nightmare for this character. And so yeah, she's living it in a way where like there's no winners. You can't win as that kind of a human being. It's just that's a scorched earth person. Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
So do you feel, I felt like, there are many layers and complexities to just racism overall. So I was wondering, what is the most important thing that we take away from this series and the overall conversation of racism in America?
I would say that we're still living it.
Yes.
I would say that like what did these families of the Great Migration experienced are no different than things we're still experiencing today. Like when I think about race and real estate in this country, we're still an incredibly segregated country. This is not like from some distant time period. And all
Right.
of these fears and the fears of disenfranchisement, specifically around real estate, are still very, very much part of the way that we live as Black folks. Will I
Mhm.
get that loan? Is my house getting appraised for a lower rate than it should be? These are all real fears that are based on decades and decades and decades of disenfranchisement. So my hope is that people will really take away from the show that segregation is not some word from 1,000 years ago. It's
Right.
part and parcel of the way we live.
So what I love also is this is a very visual anthology. Could you talk about what was the importance of including the visuals? And are you the kind of writer who leads from the vision? Do you see as opposed to the emotion and the feeling behind it? Or are you the visual?
It's everything at once. I tend to. My producers would say I might overwrite. Well, because I like to see everything. I like
Mhm.
every detail matters to me. I don't just want to write the house. I want to explain the house. I want people to feel the experience of walking through the
Right.
show when they're on the page. So it's an incredibly visual experience for me because I dream it first. And I have to see it first in order to be able to write it. But the visuals were absolutely key. Our whole team wanted to pay homage to my favorite films from the 60s and 70s. That affected the way it looked. It affected the way the costume and production design worked. It affected the score and the soundtrack quite a lot.
Yes.
So yeah, that was very important.
Thank you so much for speaking to me.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. Do I click leave room? I don't know what. Okay. Okay.